Picture a quiet evening. You are at your desk, shoulders tight, exhaling a long, tired breath you did not realize you were holding. From the couch, your dog mirrors it. A soft huff, then a slow collapse, as if your body just gave it permission to rest. Later, a notification pings. You tense, and your cat lifts its head at the exact same tempo, eyes wide, waiting to see whether the room is safe again. Over days, you start noticing patterns that feel almost eerie. The way your pet greets strangers matches your own hesitation or your ease. It eats fast when you rush, lingers when you slow down. It paces when you pace, naps when you finally stop performing for the world. And then comes the moment that sticks. Someone comments, half joking, that the two of you have the same vibe. Same look, same posture, even the same mood. How can two species end up resembling each other? Not just in appearance, but in habits and feelings. Maybe the real surprise is not that your pet lives in your home, but that it lives inside your rhythm, learning the world through your nervous system, while quietly shaping yours in return. When people say a pet looks like its owner, they usually mean the surface. Similar eyes, a familiar expression, the same kind of calm or intensity. But the deeper resemblance shows up in the invisible places, in routines, in reactions, in how both of you enter a room and decide whether it is safe. This is not a mystical bond, and it is not just coincidence. Part of it begins before you ever live together, because humans tend to choose companions that feel familiar, the kind of familiarity that signals comfort and predictability. Another part is built after the adoption, when you start interpreting your pet through your own emotional language, assigning meaning, personality, even motives, until the relationship takes shape around the story you tell. And then there is the most powerful layer, daily life. Your emotions spill into the environment. Your pet reads you, syncs with you, and over time the two nervous systems learn how to regulate each other. The twist is that it also runs backward. Your pet slowly becomes part of who you are. Even before a pet learns your schedule or your moods, something subtle has already happened. You chose each other. In psychology, there is a simple idea called assortative matching. People do not pick at random. We drift toward what feels like us, or what feels like the world we already know how to live in. Familiarity lowers uncertainty, and uncertainty is expensive for the brain. So, when you walk into a shelter, your attention is not only pulled by cuteness or color, it is pulled by energy, by presence, by the emotional temperature of an animal in front of you. An introverted person often lingers near the quiet dog, who watches first and approaches second. A high-energy person lights up around the puppy that bounces as if the floor is a trampoline. Someone who craves order and predictability finds comfort in an animal that sits quickly, stays close, and seems easy to read. None of this has to be conscious. Your nervous system can feel a match before your thoughts catch up. Sometimes it is the eyes, the way an animal holds contact without demanding it. Sometimes it is how it reacts to touch, whether it softens or stiffens, whether it retreats or leans in. Those tiny cues register as safety or friction. You call it chemistry, but underneath it is pattern recognition. This is also why people often believe they rescued a pet when they adopted it, and that can be true in a practical sense. But psychologically, there is another layer. You may also be looking for a gentler version of yourself to care for, a creature that carries a familiar kind of sensitivity or a familiar kind of boldness, without all the adult complications. Two people can stand in the same room with the same animals and walk away feeling pulled by completely different ones, each thinking, this is the one. That feeling is rarely random. It is your history and your temperament voting silently. And the moment you carry that pet home, it can feel like the choice is complete. But it is not. It is only the first alignment. The real convergence begins when you start sharing a life. Once you are living together, your pet is no longer just an animal with behaviors. It becomes a character in your inner world, and the mind immediately starts doing what it always does. It makes meaning. Two psychological processes quietly step in here. The first is projection, the tendency to place our own feelings and unresolved stories onto something outside of us. The second is anthropomorphism, the habit of translating a non-human creature into human motives so we can understand it in our own language. That is why so many owners say things like, he is mad at me, or she knows I am sad, or he is being stubborn on purpose. Sometimes those interpretations are off, because a dog avoiding eye contact might be overstimulated, not resentful, and a cat knocking something off the table might be bored, not spiteful. But the deeper point is not that people are foolish. It is that the brain is trying to build a bridge across species. We cannot directly access what our pets experience, so we use emotion as the translator. The story we tell becomes the map we live by. If you decide your dog is sensitive, you start speaking softer, moving slower, protecting it from noise. And over time, the dog becomes more tuned to your gentleness. If you decide your cat is aloof, you may handle it less, give it more distance, and the relationship becomes cooler, not because that was destiny, but because your narrative shaped your behavior. Even labels that sound harmless can become self-fulfilling environments. He is anxious, can make you hover. She is independent, can make you withdraw. In both cases, the pet is adapting to the emotional climate you create around it. And because you repeat the story to friends, to family, to yourself, the relationship gets reinforced by language. Your pet still has its own temperament, of course, but it also carries the psychological name you give it. In a very real sense, you are co-authoring a personality, and the character you write begins to live back at you through daily interaction. And then the learning becomes less about the story you tell and more about the signals you leak. One of the strongest forces here is emotional contagion, the way feelings spread through tone, posture, facial tension, and rhythm long before anyone speaks. You come home carrying stress in your shoulders and your breathing, and your dog does not need vocabulary to register it. Your cat does not need a theory of your day to notice the sharpness in your movements. Even when you try to act normal, your body keeps broadcasting. Pets pick up on that broadcast because their survival depends on reading the emotional weather of the creatures they rely on. Closely tied to this is social referencing, which is basically your pet using your reaction as a shortcut for interpreting the world. A strange noise happens outside, and your dog looks at your face before it decides whether to bark or relax. A new person enters the room, and your pet checks your body language to determine whether curiosity is safe or caution is necessary. Over time, your reactions become a kind of compass. If you tense up whenever the doorbell rings, your pet learns that the sound predicts threat, and it may escalate faster each time. If you soften your voice and breathe slowly when a loud truck passes, your pet learns that the same stimulus can be tolerated. This shows up in tiny routines too. When you rush through breakfast, your pet often eats faster, not because it is copying you on purpose, but because the whole environment feels like it is moving at a higher speed. When you settle into a calmer evening pattern, your pet tends to settle earlier, syncing its activity to the cues that the day is over. The positive side is almost poetic. Pets can become mirrors that reveal your emotional state before you name it, because they respond to the part of you that never stops communicating. The harder side is that chronic tension can become a background soundtrack for them. If your baseline is anxious, your pet may live with a quiet vigilance, constantly scanning for what you might react to next. And that is why the resemblance deepens. It starts as scattered moments of influence, then becomes a shared tempo, until the two of you begin to move like instruments that have learned the same song. As that shared tempo sets in, something even more intimate begins to happen: co-regulation. This is the process where two nervous systems do not merely influence each other from a distance, but actively help shape each other's level of arousal in real time. You can see it in the simplest gestures. When you stroke your dog's fur, your own breathing often slows without you trying. Your voice drops into a steadier register, and the dog's body loosens in response. When your cat curls against your legs, the contact is not only comfort in a sentimental sense, it is a physical cue that your body interprets as safety, and your heart rate often follows. Co-regulation also explains why stress can spiral in pairs. If you are panicked, you move faster, your tone tightens, your attention becomes sharp and scanning. Your pet catches that, becomes restless or vocal, and its agitation feeds back into your system as proof that something is wrong. A loop forms, not because either of you is irrational, but because both nervous systems are trying to manage uncertainty at the same time. The opposite loop is just as real. If one of you stays grounded, the other has something to settle against. This is why predictable rituals matter so much. The same walk, at the same time, the same bowl placed in the same spot, the same quiet pause before bed. These are not trivial habits. They are emotional anchors that teach the body what comes next, reducing the need to stay on alert. Many people believe they are simply taking care of a pet, feeding it, exercising it, keeping it safe. But in the background, the relationship is also taking care of them. Two creatures are learning, day after day, how to come back to calm together. Once co-regulation becomes a daily pattern, the influence stops feeling temporary and starts touching identity. This is where self-expansion comes in. In close relationships, people do not just share space, they expand the boundaries of the self to include the other. With pets, this can look almost ordinary on the outside. You reorganize your home around their comfort. You plan your day around their needs. You start thinking in we, even if you never say the word. But psychologically, something deeper is happening. Your pet becomes part of your mental model of who you are. You are not simply a person who owns a dog. You are the person that dog depends on, the person that dog runs to, the person that dog calms down beside. That role changes your behavior. The person who used to stay indoors begins walking every morning because someone is waiting by the door. The person who used to speak harshly learns to soften their tone because their cat flinches or their dog droops. The person who felt lonely learns a steady form of care that is not performative, and that steadiness spills into how they treat themselves. Over time, these changes can add up to personality convergence, the slow process of becoming more like the qualities that define the bond. If you describe your dog as gentle, you start acting in ways that support gentleness in the household. If you describe your cat as brave, you may find yourself taking small risks because your life now includes a creature you see as resilient. Even when your descriptions are imperfect, they shape the atmosphere you live in, and the atmosphere shapes you back. The twist is that your pet is not only reflecting your temperament, it is recruiting you into a new one. It pulls you toward routines you did not have, emotions you did not practice, and a quieter responsibility that gradually becomes normal. Eventually, the resemblance people notice is not just that you and your pet share a certain look or vibe, it is that you have been training each other into a shared way of being. Of course, people notice the resemblance in the most visible way too. Sometimes it is almost comical. The same round eyes, the same serious face, the same relaxed posture, like both of you learn to take up space in the exact same tempo. There is research suggesting that when people are shown photos of dogs and owners, they can often match the pairs better than chance. That does not mean there is magic in the bones. It points to something simpler. We tend to choose what feels familiar to our eyes. Just like we have types in friends and partners, we have types in animals, shapes and expressions that fit our aesthetic comfort. Familiarity is not only emotional, it is perceptual. What looks right can feel safe before you know why. But resemblance is not always pure mirroring. Sometimes a pet functions as an emotional counterweight. A highly controlled, perfectionistic person adopts a goofy, chaotic dog that forces laughter back into the house. Someone with anxious vigilance falls in love with a stubborn, unbothered cat that seems to live like the world is not an emergency. In those cases, the pet is not your reflection, it is your correction. It holds a missing pole of your emotional system, and by living close to it, you slowly absorb some of that balance. Whether the pet is a mirror or an opposite, the underlying mechanism is similar. You are drawn to a relationship that meets a deep need, either the comfort of sameness or the relief of contrast. And over time, both routes can still lead to convergence, because what you live beside eventually becomes part of you. So when a pet starts to feel like your twin, it is rarely one single reason. It is layered. It begins with selection, the quiet way you gravitate toward an animal whose energy already fits the emotional climate you know how to live in. It deepens through meaning making, as you project, humanize, and translate a non-human life into the language of your own feelings. Then treat that story as if it were a fact. It solidifies through daily learning, as your pet catches your moods through emotional contagion and uses your face, your voice, and your tension as a guide through social referencing. And it becomes intimate through co-regulation, where two nervous systems start returning to calm together, using touch, routine, and presence as anchors. Then comes the part people forget. Your pet changes you too. Through self-expansion, it enters your identity, reshaping your habits and your choices. Through personality convergence, you slowly become more like the qualities you associate with the bond, whether that bond is built on sameness or on a balancing contrast. The resemblance, in other words, is the footprint of a shared life. It is proof that love is not only an emotion, it is repetition. It is the 1,000 tiny adjustments two creatures make so the home feels safe. That is why the sweetness carries a faint ache. A pet's life is shorter, but its influence is not. Long after the bowl is put away, you still hear the old rhythm in your day, the instinct to open the door at a certain hour, the habit of softening your voice, the the reflex to pause and breathe. It is like love written in fur, in eyes, and in quiet routines, a handwriting that stays in you, even when the writer is gone.